What's up everybody, back with another raid guide, and today we're taking a look at Mythic Xy'mox again. Now I'll be going over most of the new mechanics, how to deal with them, as well as some tips and tricks for your progression. I won't be covering all of the heroic mechanics unless they've been updated for Mythic, so if you're not up to date, feel free to check out my heroic guide. Setup wise, we ran 2 tanks, 4 healers, and 14 DPS. At least one of these needs to be a warlock. This fight is, dare I say, impossible without him. Other than that, a few big AoE blasters doesn't hurt at all. So, Artificer Xy'mox. Fun with portals. This time around there's more adds and a few beams. Now, due to the nature of this fight, I'll do a quick run through of the new mythic mechanic and then just a step-by-step breakdown of the fight, the rings, and the grips. So the big new thing here are the Cartel Elite. Now, around the main platform where you fight the boss, there's 3 smaller platforms where you'll fight the Cartel Elite. So a few seconds after you pull the boss, as well as after each intermission, the Cartel Elite will spawn on one of these platforms. And these spawns are set, so first platform will always be left, second middle, and third to the right. So due to this, you're going to have to split the raid a bit to deal with each set of adds, but more on this in a bit. Now you'll get 5 Cartel Plunderers as well as a Cartel Overseer. Name of the game, burn them down before they finish deciphering the relic on the platform. If they do, you all die, which is something to avoid. Now, the Plunderers don't do anything except channel Decipher Relic. The Overseer, however, needs to be tanked and has a frontal cone. And after a bit, it will use the ability that every single DPS loves, which is a rotating body armor, which absorbs all damage. So, DPS needs to be behind the barrier, and tanks needs to position the Overseer so that the barrier isn't in the way of all the Plunderers. What this means in practice is aggro big mob, drag it on top of the middle Plunderer, and its shield will almost always spawn in front of them. Now, while the Overseer is alive, Rift Blast will spawn all over the encounter space, which includes the main platform with the boss, and these beams do around 60k damage if you get hit, so avoid getting hit. On top of this, while the Plunderers are alive, they debuff nearby players with Ancient Exhaust, which increases damage taken by the relic they're channeling into. And these pulsates damage every 2 seconds while the adds are up, and this debuff lasts for the rest of the fight and it stacks. So due to this, you can't just send over the same players to every single platform, as they'll take too much damage from the relic. So let's talk about the splits. Now, for this you want big blasty AoEers, as you need to burn down 6 targets in a pretty short window of time. Now, how many you need to send over will differ a bit depending on raid setup, gear, if you have a Windwalker monk or not. They do shred just the tiniest of bits on this type of AoE. Ideally, you want to avoid sending over the same players more than once, however you can send 1 or 2 of the same DPS over again, if they're big carry. So for example, we sent over our Windwalker on all 3 platforms as they do blast, and he could survive with some fancy diffuse magic, karma, and self-healing. But externals from healers will work as well. We also sent 1 of our tanks twice, and 2 of our DPS went twice as well, but other than that we rotate everyone else. Now for our first platform we sent 1 tank, 1 healer, and 4 DPS. Second platform, same thing, but with 3 new DPS and a new tank and healer. Last platform we sent over 2 new healers, same tank, and 2 new DPS with 4 DPS in total. Now, the reason we added a healer extra was just to make it more safe, as we had a few players on that platform that already had a lot of Ancient Exhaust stacks. And like I said, this can differ for your raid, your setup, your gear, so play around with it a bit, send more DPS if needed. The boss DPS check is kinda non-existent, so it's all about making the platforms work. Now on top of this, you want to assign 1 backup healer and 1 backup DPS for each platform, as these adds spawn when the wormhole goes out, and you don't want to wait for that healer or DPS to drop the wormhole and then go to the platform. In some cases they can join up after and just help out with some extra DPS, but you still want to send over a backup healer or DPS if one of the OG platformers gets wormholed. Now apart from this, there's nothing new, but as always everything has been scaled up a ton and is more punishing. So let's talk wormhole. Cue the picture. Now at the start of the fight, after each intermission and sub 30%, you get a new set of wormholes wormholes. And we'll refer to these as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So we had tanks always put their wormhole at the start of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 4 on cross, middle of the relic. And at the start of phase 3, tanks put theirs on the star marker. The other wormhole, depending on phase, was first on square, second triangle, third moon, and fourth on diamond marker. And these locations are pretty much set in stone for the strat we use, and where we position raid and where the tank grips. So the general idea is always bait traps away, use gateway over to the platform and kill adds, and tank grips them back with glyph of relocation. Spread when hyperlight spark goes out and dodge rings. Easy peasy, what could go wrong? So with that said, let's instead go over how we dodged all the rings and where we place our tank grips. Now where you place each tank grip, where the raid is positioned, and how the raid moves with the wormholes all tie in nicely with raid damage taken and surviving the rings. Now the tank grip deals less damage the further away you are, so you should always play around that. Move further away if you're a squishy class like a hunter, and stack before the tank grips when possible, aka when they're not overlapping with hyperlight spark. In phase 1 for first and second ring, raid will take the outer portal on square, then stack near middle, tank blows up near square, gripping everyone back there. Now in phase 2, the very first set of 2 rings you get has a bit of a sketchy timing. So you'll have one ring going from middle and out, and one ring going from the outside and in. And these 2 overlap right before the tank glyph blows up and you grip, leaving you with like a 1 sec window where you need to get into that safe overlap and grip the raid through the rings. Easiest way to do this is either with a immunity or transcendence teleport if you're a brewmaster. So if you're a paladin, for example, you can bubble or spell ward, blood DK can AMS, and monks can just teleport. Now if you immune it, you just run through out near the edge and wait. And if you teleport, you need to pre-position your transcendence near the ramp that goes to the second platform, roughly where we have our skull mark. And when there's 1 second left on your glyph of relocation, teleport over, you'll be safe, raid is happy. Too early, you die, and raid is sad. So first rings and grip in phase 2, raid waits near the outer wormhole on green, go in when first ring is close and stack near middle, and the tank grips raid in the manner I just explained. Second set of rings in phase 2, raid goes in on outer wormhole, then spreads. Tank waits near middle wormhole and goes in alone when there's 2-3 seconds left on glyph, move away from the wormhole a bit and grip the raid there. Just make sure you don't grip right on top of the wormhole, they get very salty if you do. Now in phase 3, we have the wormholes on star and moon, and we'll get triple rings. So for the first set of rings in phase 3, your tank wants to do the same as on the first rings in phase 2, so either immune or teleport through the overlap and grip the raid. The timing is pretty much exactly the same, but it's in a new location, which is just to the side of the moon marker. Either side is fine, just next to the wormhole. So when the rings go out, raid goes into the outer wormhole once it has just passed the star marked wormhole. Keep in mind that the space between these wormholes is a lot smaller than the previous ones, so it's a tight timing. After you go in, stack, tank, immune through the ring and grip to the side of the moon mark, or transcendence when there's 1 second left on glyph. Now after this grip, the raid needs to instantly spread as there's a hyperlight spark, and then as soon as the spark has jumped, you need to go back into the outer wormhole to survive the ring. Now this timing is very delicate, if you will, as there's not a lot of space to spread on and the ring is closing in fast on the raid. So one rule we had for this: if you can immune or blink the rings, go through it instantly and spread away. If you're high mobility, you spread far away from the outer wormhole, and this is just so that everyone could safely spread but still make it into the rings. Following this is a tank grip before the second set of phase 3 rings. Place this wherever. We put it near green mark and raid away from it. Doesn't matter, doesn't overlap with rings. However, for the rest of the raid, for the second set of rings, start near outer wormhole, then just dance back and forth as there's no tank grip with this. Now sub 30%, you place one wormhole in the middle on cross right on top of the relic, and one far away on like a corner platform, if you will, where we have our purple mark. So the way we did it was everyone waits near the outer wormhole on diamond mark. As soon as the first ring starts moving out, everyone goes into the wormhole, teleports, and runs after that ring, and then stack a bit away from purple mark, and the tank keeps running after the ring and grip as close to the wormhole as possible. The raid then moves into wormhole, instantly spreads, then wait near the inner wormhole after with a Hyperlight Spark, and when it's just about to reach the middle, you enter the Wormhole. This makes all the timings very easy and forgivable, but it does increase the amount of damage the raid takes from that tank grip, as you're somewhat forced to blow up very close to the raid. So we told everyone to use pretty much any and all defensive CDs, healing pots, whatever, for this tank grip, as there's nothing dangerous after this. There's nothing to use cooldowns on, so just overstack it, survive. Other than that, everything plays out kinda like Heroic, but more punishing. The Hyperlight Spark Nova is really rough if you take multiple stacks, or when it overlaps with tank grips, so it's important to spread well with this and make sure you don't move before all the sparks have jumped to avoid getting multiple stacks. And the tank grip Glyph of Relocation, when it blows up, it hurts way more than you'd think, and you can only stack for a few of them, so make sure you have sufficient healing CDs to cover all of these and when they overlap with Spark Nova Dot. So with that said, let's break down the fight a bit. So the first thing is traps. To keep all of the traps that boss spawns in check, you want to bait as many of them as possible near old traps and along the edges of the room, and in the general area around your current wormhole. And never ever ever between the middle and the purple mark that you use in phase 4. You do not want to trap there. And you do this simply by tracking the timer for trap spawns or get a weak aura that yells bait. But 1-2 sec before traps go out, make sure to position yourself in such a way that were a trap to spawn near you, it wouldn't make everyone sad. So let's hop into it. On pull, tank boss near middle, raid spread between middle and around square mark, and blast away on boss. Place a gateway going between the ramp and the first platform on the left. 5 seconds into the fight, you get your first wormhole, and your first platform group needs to gateway over to the first platform. Just make sure to take the gateway after the wormhole debuff goes out, not when a player drops it, just when a player gets the debuff. And if one of the platform members gets this wormhole, send over a backup. Platform group, make sure to clear your ads, then AFK and wait for the tank grip. Main platform team, move boss and raid closer to the outer wormhole, move in when ring gets close, then stack. Tank, follow the ring and grip near square, which in turn grips the platform team back, and then you spread for Spark Nova. Now for the intermission itself, make sure to have interrupt rotations for all the small ads, as well as stun in cap rotation for the big ads massive blast. We had 3 AoE stuns back to back and a Dragon's Breath, which kept them from ever casting their massive blast. Make sure all DPS focus down on the big acolytes, as they have a lot of health on Mythic, so cleave from the acolytes. When the intermission ends, new gateway to second platform, a new platform team goes over after wormhole debuff goes out, deal with rings and tank grips as described earlier, and push boss to 50% a bit before the third set of rings in phase 2 goes out. Now in phase 3, keep in mind that this phase has 5% less HP, as it's between 50 and 30%, so depending on your raid DPS, you might actually need to hold damage a bit in order to transition with cooldowns up and alive as well, which is a bonus. So you want to transition right after or a few seconds after the second set of rings in phase 3. If you transition during, say, the third set of rings in phase 3, boss will still start its phase 4 timers while you're busy dodging rings, so you just lose a ton of DPS and uptime due to it. So either push after second set of rings or after third set of rings. And as soon as boss hits 30%, use combat pot, all DPS cooldowns, bloodlust, and just nuke away. Make sure to bait traps away from the area between purple mark and middle relic. When the rings go out, move close to purple mark and deal with the rings and grips as described earlier. Again, have everyone use personal defensive cooldowns, health stone, raid cooldowns, you name it for this tank grip. However, if only half the raid survives, you can still kill it, so don't throw away a pull by calling wipe too early. There's nothing that happens after this, just smack away. And that's pretty much it for this fight on Mythic. If you have any questions at all about this encounter, hit me up in the comments or become a patron or Twitch sub and get access to the Stankie Discord, where you can find raid weakauras, healing notes and timings, and a lot of awesome people to help you with raid progression. Don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, it really helps me out. I'm also streaming all of our progression on Twitch, so make sure to check that out. It's on Thursdays and Sundays now. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.